One of President Donald Trump's earliest actions upon entering the White House was to mandate that federal employees return to the office. His stance was clear. He believed the government workforce could not be productive if they worked remotely. Trump frequently asserted that federal employees were not working from home, but rather using the opportunity to enjoy leisure activities, such as playing tennis and golf. "I happen to be a believer that you have to go to work. I don't think you can work from home," Trump declared in a February 11, 2017, statement. "Nobody's going to work from home. They're going to be going out, they're going to play tennis, they're going to play golf. They're going to do a lot of things. They're not working." Just 3 days after making these comments, Trump embarked on one of his frequent trips to his private residence, Mar-a-Lago, in Palm Beach, Florida, where he spent parts of 6 consecutive days, according to a tracker from NBC News. During this time, Trump did, in fact, perform some official duties, such as signing executive orders and holding impromptu press conferences. Yet, in the eyes of many federal workers, this apparent contradiction, Trump's vocal condemnation of remote work while simultaneously working from home, exposed a glaring hypocrisy. Trump's Mar-a-Lago trips, which frequently included golfing outings, raised concerns among government employees about the inconsistency between his rhetoric and actions. For instance, between February 14 and February 19, 2017, Trump golfed on 4 separate days. While this was not unprecedented, many prior presidents have spent time on golf courses. It was another instance of taxpayer dollars being spent on the president's leisure activities. In addition to his golfing, Trump also hosted Republican senators at Mar-a-Lago during this period, offering remarks and updates on his administration's efforts to reduce government spending. However, for many federal workers, Trump's repeated visits to his luxurious Florida estate and his regular golfing excursions felt hypocritical, given his call for millions of government employees to return to the office. One federal worker, a Department of Education employee, who is also a disabled veteran, expressed frustration at the situation, calling attention to the power dynamics at play. "It's clear, and should be to the rest of Americans, that it's never about the rule, it's about who's making the rules," the employee said. "This all fits in so perfectly to the power dynamics installed by this administration, a dynamic where Trump does what he wants, to whom he wants, without repercussions." The return to office mandate was never about effectiveness, collaboration, or cohesion, the employee added. It was always about federal employees being traumatically affected, as Russell Vought put it. Russell Vought, a key architect of Trump's government policies, was instrumental in crafting Project 2025, a comprehensive conservative policy platform that emphasized reducing the size of the federal workforce and expanding presidential power. The project's ideals were evident throughout Trump's tenure, including his frequent critiques of the federal workforce as bloated, inefficient, and wasteful. Trump also enlisted the help of billionaire Elon Musk to lead the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, a department tasked with identifying wasteful government spending and eliminating unnecessary positions, despite the administration's repeated efforts to shrink the federal workforce. Trump himself continued to spend taxpayer money on personal leisure activities. As of the time of writing, Trump had made 14 golf trips during his second term in office, with each outing costing taxpayers millions of dollars in security and transportation expenses. In fact, since January of the current year, Trump's golf weekends have already cost taxpayers more than $18 million, according to one analysis. Trump's trips to Mar-a-Lago were particularly frequent, as he spent 5 of his first 7 weekends as president at the estate. On a 6th weekend, he stayed at another Trump property in Miami. The frequency of his travels to Mar-a-Lago prompted many to question the fairness of demanding that government workers return to the office while he enjoyed the comforts of his private estate. His most recent trip, which began on a Friday and extended through Sunday evening, marked the 7th of 8 weekends Trump had spent at Mar-a-Lago during his time in office. Meanwhile, Trump and Musk regularly criticized federal workers, calling them lazy and prone to wasting taxpayer dollars. On a Wednesday in early 2024, Trump made disparaging remarks about federal employees, saying, "I feel very badly, but many of them don't work at all. Many of them never showed up to work. That's not good." This statement was made without providing any evidence to substantiate his claims. By the White House Office of Management and Budget indicated that, as of May 2024, 54% of the 2.28 million federal employees were working in person, while 46.4% were eligible for remote work. However, just 10% of federal workers held remote-only positions. For those employees who had initially been hired to work remotely, the administration's insistence on a return to the office created significant personal challenges. An employee from the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, criticized Trump's portrayal of the federal workforce, pointing out that many remote workers had become more productive by eliminating the time spent commuting to and from the office. The HHS worker also criticized Trump's frequent Mar-a-Lago trips, calling them a bad look, considering his public statements about wanting to reduce government spending. Another federal worker, a Veterans Affairs employee who was on maternity leave, shared concerns about the difficulties faced by colleagues who had been hired to work remotely but would now have to relocate in order to comply with the new office mandates. Everyone built their lives around these remote positions. The employee explained, "My supervisor lives in Florida and was hired as a remote employee. She can't relocate." As with Trump, other US presidents have faced criticism for the costs associated with their personal travel. President Joe Biden, for example, faced scrutiny over the expenses incurred during his frequent trips to his home in Wilmington, Delaware. In 2022, it was estimated that Biden's Delaware trips had cost taxpayers $11 million. Former President Barack Obama was also known for taking expensive vacations to Hawaii, with one estimate putting the total cost of his vacations during his 8 years in office at $85 million. Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, a conservative legal advocacy group, noted that presidential travel is a common point of contention. However, he also pointed out that, unlike the case of federal employees being forced to return to the office, presidents are generally entitled to take time off, even if it comes with a hefty price tag. Fitton argued that there was no real comparison between a president golfing on weekends and a government worker being forced to give up a remote position or commute long distances. While Trump had initially promised during his 2016 campaign that he would not golf if elected president, he quickly reneged on that vow. In fact, he has golfed at his Doral course in Miami, a location he once claimed he would never have time to visit during his presidency. This contradiction has not gone unnoticed by many who view it as emblematic of the broader hypocrisy in Trump's approach to governing. Noah Bookbinder, the president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CREW, commented on the situation, emphasizing the tension between Trump's public criticism of government waste and his personal actions. He's not just going to his home. he's going to the business that he owns. And so every time he makes a trip, that brings money into his business, which puts money in his pockets. Bookbinder said, at the same time that he is bemoaning waste and fraud in the federal government, he's actually through this travel having taxpayers pay his businesses, which makes him richer. That seems problematic, and like a real level of irony when there's so much emphasis on cutting down on government, police, fraud, and abuse, while presidents are expected to take time off to recharge and meet with officials in private settings. Trump's frequent trips to his personal properties and his emphasis on reducing government waste created a perfect storm of contradictions. For many federal workers, the situation was a stark reminder of the disconnect between the president's words and actions. His stance on government workers and remote work might have been more palatable had he not chosen to spend so much of his time away from the White House, at the taxpayer's expense, enjoying the luxuries of his Mar-a-Lago estate. As these issues continue to unfold, one thing is clear: federal workers and the public will be watching closely to see how the Trump administration, as well as future administrations, balance the demands of the office with the expectations of their workforce and taxpayers. The intersection of government policy, presidential privileges, and taxpayer spending will likely remain a topic of debate for years to come.